Hello again and welcome to Finding Sanctuary. This is a series of discussions between Buddhist nuns about the Therigatha, which are poems composed by fully enlightened nuns at the Buddha's time. I'm Ayya Vimalanyani, and with me today is again Venerable Munissara. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Welcome.
So the poem you have selected for today is by a nun called Uttama. And I'm going to share my screen again so that our viewers can see the poem. And Ayya, please, if you're ready, please go ahead and read out the poem.
4 or 5 times I left I had to find peace of heart or any of my mind. I approached a nun in whom I had faith. She taught me the Dhamma, the aggregates, sense fields, and elements. When I had heard her teaching, in accordance with her instructions, I sat for 7 days in the same, given over to rapture and bliss. On the 8th day, I stretched out my feet, having shattered a mass of darkness. Therīgāthā 3.2, Venerable Uttama.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. This poem always makes me smile a little because when I read it, Uttama, she's so dejected when after 5 days she hasn't attained anything. And for us, in modern days, we have to practice we have to be ordained and practice for years or decades or even lifetimes until we hopefully at the end attain enlightenment. But for her, she is so enthusiastic and so disappointed in the beginning. So I think to me that's a very, very nice story that she's telling. So Venerable,
relatable.
Yeah, exactly, very relatable. So maybe you can go ahead and tell us why you chose this poem.
Yeah, that we can relate to that experience, but also that I find it very encouraging. It gives you hope, that even the great thieves who became enlightened, they started out from that, and that when you continue in the story, it's not even take that long, after. So she's in this state where she can't find any peace of her heart or any control over her mind, and then hey, she goes, here's a Dhamma talk, and all of a sudden she's like given over to rapture and bliss. So I have to say, I mean, there's the cynical part of me that's like, what? How can that happen so fast? How can the flip happen so fast? Mm-hmm. But to know, hey, maybe that is possible. Mm-hmm. Maybe that you don't know. Your mind is such a subtle thing. Sometimes all sorts of progress is happening under the surface, at a deeper level that you can't necessarily may not be obvious at the surface level, but maybe in our practice there are all these things that are maturing under the ground, so to speak. It is like little plants, sometimes you water them and nothing comes up and you're like, oh, okay, it's not working, but actually under the ground there is development going on, and we just can't see that. And it is sudden when it pokes its little head, when seedling pokes its head above the ground. It does seem sudden. It was like, hey, just like 2 minutes ago it was not there, and yet, hey, it could sprout at any moment. And even though I have to be honest, part of me still finds that hard to believe, and you're like, okay, so my mind is like this today, tomorrow I'm going to be enlightened, or 5 minutes from now I'm going to be enlightened, and sure don't feel it. But maybe it can be, and we never know how close or how far we are, and maybe we're close. But it's very reassuring to know that this is the normal process, and to give yourself some credit, when you are practicing, that what efforts you're making to cultivate the path, they are not for us, it's something that is adding up and accumulating, and that we just have to keep the faith that one day it will flip, and that this is the normal process, and it's not some kind of somehow you're sort of like the slow kid in the class, or, something, but that it's normal for the mind to take time to mature. And to see, not just with this verse, but like I said, many other nuns in the collection of the Therigatha, that this seems to be the normal procedure. You have a mind that's like unpeaceful, uncontrolled, and yet somehow with the right conditions, the mind can awaken. And so this is it makes it more, it makes our idea of practice shifts. We have maybe our own more orderly image of what practice is like or what progress is like. When you read these verses that are like graphical, boom, right? I mean, I believe that they're based on real life stories, and then it kind of made like, well, actually, happen in the of people who really did break through. It can happen like this, where the mind can seem, at one moment so far from awakening, and yet in the next it has achieved it. So that's, I still have to let that sin in, and really develop faith in that possibility. But even if it may not be such a dramatic tale for each person, everybody's awakening process will be different. To know that is possible is actually very powerful. And also the part that I really appreciate this poem was that the condition that was important for her, the crucial was hearing the Dhamma from a great nun, like to be able to have that image of a great female teacher. Actually quite rare in my consciousness. I feel like I grew up, for me, because I'm Thai in heritage, I grew up with just ideas or images of monks. You hear the great Kruba Ajahns, and you see their pictures. If you go to Forest Monastery, you see all their portraits in the halls or whatever. And they're always these men sit there in front of a tree meditating or whatever. But it's the image, all the pictures you've subconsciously collected are all of men. And so even though I'm a woman and I say, I think it's possible for everybody, blah, blah, blah. And you have that idea that, yes, enlightenment doesn't depend on gender, et cetera, but actually your own experience of just even if you haven't met them, but just the images you have of enlightened people, or even the ones you have had the good fortune to meet that, people say are enlightened, or they feel very special. They've tended to be monks. I've only in my life met one Machi who they say, is enlightened. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I've only met one. And so but I've met many, not huge amounts, but, and then a handful of monks who they say are enlightened or whatever. I mean, we can't tell, but we have the sense that they seem very peaceful and they seem very wise and they seem to have a lot of metta. There's something special about them that I caught myself, or actually I didn't catch myself. I was talking to Ajahn Brahmali, asking him some Dhamma questions, and I had some question about when arahants, this and that, and I used the pronoun, immediately I used the pronoun he, when he, and then he corrected me. He's like, she. And I was like, yeah, that's right. Isn't that interesting? That immediately I just used the pronoun he, is just naturally, in my mind, it's like, arahant equals, male, and so to, I find it very, very nourishing to read pieces of the days, because it gives you more like data points in your consciousness that enlightened people who are women existed, and many of them existed, and that is actually really possible for as a woman, you know, this idea that you know it at a theoretical level, but unless you actually see, you know, of course it's more powerful to meet someone in person, but even to hear of them, you know, like to even read these verses of various, so many women, you know, you see they're all like in Pali, the long A ending, you know, they're all like long A ending, or they're all so many various women, and not just like you met in your whole life, the one you met, or, you know, this other have is when I went to, you know, northern Thailand, they have this monastery, Wat Jedi Luang, where Man, or Ajahn Man, where he practiced for some time, and they had this hall there with all these relics of the Arahants. And okay, whether you believe in relic or not, but let's say they, you know, for what they're worth, you know, if the relics of an enlightened person is some evidence that they have reached enlightenment, I just noticed like all the cases where it was lines and lines, like, you know, stacks and stuff of all these, you know, Luang Bu this, the Luang Pa that, which is venerable father, venerable grandfather, like all these monks. And there was like, in one corner I saw like two Machi relics, you know, Machi Gao, and the other one, I don't remember the name, you know, the two examples of like women, you know, who broke through and became enlightened. I just had such a feeling of like, hey, there's something wrong with these ratios, you know, like where are the women in this, you know, where are the other that are not just venerable father and venerable grandfather, but like where are the venerable mothers, you know? And so it yeah, it kind of made me that it is less possible because you don't see those examples if you're a woman, you know, and it's something that you constantly have to like give yourself an extra pep talk, I think, if you're a woman, that hey, it is possible for you. It is possible for women. It is possible for like anyone who practices the path, and it's okay if you don't have any living examples, you know, that you've come across, or not many, and it's still possible. And if you at least go and read the verses of the Theris, then you have more evidence of real life examples that you can somehow, you can put that into your subconscious as well, and not just all the images of the monks. I mean, not to say, of course we appreciate anybody enlightened. Of course we appreciate all the great Kruba Ajahns who are monks. And of course we are, you know, so very inspired by them. But somehow the connection isn't completely there, that it makes it possible for me, you know, whereas when you read the verses of the Theris who are women, it is a stronger, you know, link to this idea deep in your heart that this is possible for me. I am capable of this, or not I, but, you know, this mind is capable of this, whether I'm in a female body or not, you know, and so I find it very, I remember when I first became a samaneri, somebody had given me a translation of the verses of the nuns, of the Theris, and I remember when I read that, the poems that did jump out at me were all the ones that were like, and then I approached a nun in whom I had faith, and then she gave me this magical Dhamma talk, and it was so powerful that I suddenly became enlightened, you know. It was just, it's like, wow, okay, A, there's enlightened women, but also B, they are capable of teaching in a way that can really convey the Dhamma to someone else in a way that C leads to enlightenment. So you have this sense of effective transmission within a female lineage, you know? And that it's having those pieces, having both the great female teacher, but also the great nun who's able to receive that and actually make a breakthrough because of it. And so it's just really inspiring, and also it's also I guess seeds you with that faith in your own capacity to be both, you know, to to be able to practice the path to its fullest, but also possibly to be able to teach it to the fullest. And so that's something that I think it means a lot in your practice, a real firm belief in your own capacity, and a firm confidence in that capacity.
Thank you so much, Ayya, for sharing your insights about this poem with us. And
you're welcome.
For our viewers, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. The next episode of Finding Sanctuary will be uploaded tomorrow. And Ayya Munissara, thank you so much for joining us today. Such a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.